There was an exceptionally talented scholar, but he lived his entire life in solitude and became an alcoholic, unable to live without wine. The world at this time was about to face a great disaster. Knowing that the scholar would not live much longer, a man came to him with a wish to turn his spirit into a brush. This way, his soul would be eternally preserved. However, the scholar only cared about his wine jar. As soon as he drank the wine, ideas came to his head, and he rushed to the table to write down a few lines. After the spell was cast, the scholar transformed into a brush pen. When the man tried to put the brush into a bamboo tube, the brush protected itself and flew away. The man gave up, not knowing when he would see that brush again. Fast forward to the present, our main character is Jiangxia, a university student. He had to attend a boring national language class just because he couldn't find any other class the night before due to the school's slow internet speed. Bored, he was spinning his pen and not listening to the teacher's lecture, so he was called upon to answer a question. He gave a nonsensical answer, causing another student in the class to stand up and answer in his place. This student then pushed Jiangxia towards the teacher to apologize for not respecting the lecture and giving a wrong answer that insulted literature and poetry. As Jiangxia was pushed towards the desk, he resisted and knocked over the teacher's coffee cup and brush pen. He managed to catch the cup, but accidentally stepped on and broke the brush. This brush happened to be the teacher's most treasured possession, so the other student accused Jiangxia of being a destructive vandal. Jiangxia was then taken away by the teacher and the other student. Originally, Jiangxia had only chosen this class to improve his transcript, but now things had gone awry. The teacher was boring and always asking questions. To make matters worse, there was Zheng He, a student Jiangxia despised for his habit of putting others down. Jiangxia decided to confront this student after class. Jiangxia was taken to meet the principal. Zheng He played the sycophant in front of the teacher, trying to shirk responsibility and place all the blame on Jiangxia. The principal was also angry with Jiangxia because the national language teacher had only become enthusiastic about teaching again after 10 years, only to have Jiangxia disrupt his class. The teacher scolded Jiangxia severely, even suggesting that he should no longer study this subject, be removed from the class, and have it noted in his academic record. Jiangxia had to apologize in hopes of being forgiven. However, the national language teacher informed Jiangxia that this brush was no ordinary one. It often appeared in antique markets, but wasn't always available. If Jiangxia could find a similar brush, the teacher would forgive him. The teacher believed in teaching rather than punishing, wanting Jiangxia to learn many lessons in the process of finding a new brush. At that point, the teacher would have a new brush, and Jiangxia would have learned his lesson. Jiangxia could only laugh awkwardly to get through the situation. Afterwards, Jiangxia had to visit more than a dozen antique markets, but couldn't find any brush similar to the teacher's. He suspected the teacher was deliberately playing a trick on him to make him lose both energy and grades. Suddenly, at one market, there was a stall selling brush pens. He sat down to look, but couldn't find any that resembled the teacher's, despite the stall owner's persistent sales pitch. Jiangxia then spotted Zheng He passing by and abandoned his brush shopping to follow him. The stall owner kept trying to sell, forcing Jiangxia to leave decisively. He then followed Zheng He to a place called Mac Vu Family. Zheng He had gone there to ask an acquaintance to help find a rare brush similar to the teacher's. Jiangxia realized this disagreeable person was trying to curry favor with the teacher and further put him down. After sitting for a while, Jiangxia overheard that they had found the location selling a brush similar to the teacher's, so he rushed off while Zheng He was still gloating. When Jiangxia arrived at the location, the antique market seemed quite deserted and quiet. He called for the shop owner and met a beautiful, charming girl who made him fall in love at first sight. He had to shift the conversation to buying the brush, and the girl brought out a brush for him to see. Jiangxia found it similar to the teacher's brush and offered to buy it immediately, but the girl refused, wanting to wait for her grandfather to return and set the price. However, a man arrived, wanting to take something from there. The girl adamantly refused and asked him to leave. He grabbed the brush box that Jiangxia intended to buy and threw it, forcing Jiangxia to catch it to avoid damage. He was determined not to leave without getting what he wanted, so he threatened to use force, compelling Jiangxia to step in and mediate. The man paid no attention and used magic to scatter the entire shop. Jiangxia had to catch the girl while the man went inside to take what he wanted. The girl asked Jiangxia to hold onto the brush box and cast a snow spell to attack the man. The more he resisted, the more snow covered him. Both of them showed that their powers came from special brush pens. Suddenly, the brush that the man had just taken flew towards Jiangxia and pierced him. Jiangxia suddenly gained powers and began to block all attacks from the man. He even blocked attacks for the girl and launched a move that defeated the man. Afterwards, Jiangxia didn't understand what had just happened and fainted. When he regained consciousness, Jiangxia found himself on a boat, surrounded by some kind of celestial realm. Suddenly, a whirlwind appeared and blew him back to reality. He found himself unharmed, and suddenly there was a handkerchief on him. The girl from earlier and her grandfather came in and asked if he was feeling better. The old man introduced himself as the shop owner and the girl as his granddaughter, Xiarong. Jiangxia wanted the old man to explain what had happened. The old man suggested that Jiangxia was simply not used to the cold energy from the antiques in his shop and had fainted. But Jiangxia clearly remembered what had happened: the girl and the man in the suit fighting with magic, and the brush piercing him. The old man thought Jiangxia must be hallucinating, and that his dream about the granddaughter must be because he liked her, as he was still holding her handkerchief. When asked why he came, Jiangxia described the brush, but unfortunately, someone named Trin had already bought it earlier. Disappointed, Jiangxia decided to leave, while the old man and Xiarong felt this was for the best. The old man then gave Jiangxia an even more valuable brush pen as compensation for fainting in his shop. Jiangxia returned to school, still not believing that what he experienced was just a hallucination. However, he couldn't claim it was real because he wasn't injured despite being pierced by the brush. He then remembered that this new brush was more valuable, so he could make up a story about his difficult search for the brush when he meets the teacher, hoping to be forgiven. Later, Jiangxia encountered Zheng He, and they both went to see the teacher to give him the brushes. Zheng He gave the teacher exactly the brush he wanted, claiming he went to find it himself because he was afraid the teacher would wait too long. As for Jiangxia, Zheng He suggested that he must have learned something even if he couldn't bring back a brush.